got our life and not have a clue. You just told us that you're not wrong.
Have everyone take their seats, please. Everyone take care.
Started chewing grass out for cattle. And the idea is the person on the heart
Can I have your attention, please? We're going to start. Running a few minutes late, so please take your seats. Thankful that everybody.
Wait to see if
I don't know what I'm doing right now.
John, I'll take them.
Okay, can we have the city council members?
John, over here.
Good. Somebody's on it.
Okay.
Jim, the guy in the black hat, thank you.
See, I got it. Here, go ahead.
Here with you guys. This is Kim, I'm Joanne. Harrison and
Four city Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the first membership meeting for the newly elected board for the Coastside Democrats. And we're glad that you're all here. And we should have a very interesting meeting tonight. Yes. Yeah. These are the 5 other candidates. And we need one more city council. Sorry. Dave?
No, but you're a council member, so you can. Yes, I am. So you want to be asked a question?
24 hours.
No? Okay, never mind.
That's for the representative for Rick Kowalczyk.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that person here?
Yes.
Rick was supposed to send somebody.
Yeah. Is there a representative here from candidate Rick Kowalczyk?
He or she may show up and they'll be seated when they come.
Okay.
He is now, yes.
So I wanted to go over the ground rules a little bit for everyone first. Because we're a club that's part of the San Mateo County Central Committee, we're affiliated with the Central Committee. We have to abide by the Central Committee bylaws. And the Central Committee bylaws say that clubs cannot endorse candidates or measures. They can only make recommendations to the Central Committee. So the votes that we're going to be taking tonight are going to be what we as a club recommend to the Central Committee. Now, because these are all local offices, the Central Committee typically accepts the recommendations from the club that's local to that area. No guarantee, but it's normal, correct? even in the
Well,
central committee.
there have been times when a candidate who has not been endorsed will come and make a case.
No, that's a different thing. In other words, if somebody's not been recommended,
Right,
there are some Democrats who that are running for office that chose not to send anybody here.
right,
They are not appearing on our ballot,
right.
but they're still will go to the central committee.
That's right.
So the central committee has the ultimate authority. Now, if the central committee, for whatever reason, chooses not to endorse, well, I'm sorry. For the candidates that the central committee does endorse, the clubs have the choice of either accepting that endorsement, going along with it, or abstaining. We, as a club, are not allowed to endorse somebody other than what the central committee endorses. If the central committee does not endorse, then the club can make its own endorsement. But according to our bylaws, which will probably change soon, come on in.
Don't let me interrupt, I'm just looking for a seat, thank you.
According to our old bylaws, the club cannot endorse candidates that, other than what the central committee endorses. But they could endorse measures. So we'll worry about the measures in just a minute. So the main thing is that people need to understand, what is this vote all about? How does it matter? You know, is it important? So are there any questions on the procedures that we're going to have? That is how this endorsement process works? Okay, in order to get a ballot, you have to do two things. You have to, one, be a paid-up member of the club, and number two, you have to be a registered Democrat. So if you meet both of those criteria, hopefully you checked in at the door and we're able to get a ballot. And we're passing out ballots, and we're passing out a place for you to write in a question for the candidates. Okay. There is one measure. I'm sorry. No. There are two bylaws amendments. They're both very short, and there will undoubtedly be more in the future. But we just wanted to try to get something together that we thought would make a help. The wording of those amendments are on the back side of your ballot, and they have been sent out to the members previously. But hopefully we'll be able to get through those rather quickly. Okay. We have here three, hopefully the fourth will come, candidates or representatives of candidates for the Half Moon Bay City Council. We're going to start with them.
Dennis, will there be a chance to speak to these amendments that you talked about?
Yes. Then we have one candidate for the Open Fire Board District seat, and we have 5 candidates for the Harbor District. One is for the 2-year seat, and 4 are for the 4-year seat. But we're going to take them in groups. So one group and then an area. And we'll have an opportunity for
Yeah. TJ asked a question about whether we're going to discuss the bylaw amendments, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the first thing on the ballot.
Okay, so that's the first on the ballot, so maybe we'll start with that.
Can I ask a question before you
Yes.
do that? On the candidate questions that we can submit,
Yes.
are we supposed to submit 2 for the different harbor districts, or will
No.
you be asking the same group, both different
Yeah.
groups?
Yeah, we'll treat them
Okay.
as if they were one.
All right.
But we were just discussing whether to have the questions.
You could do it later, Dennis, it's fine. I just wanted at some point to be sure that we could.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah, we will.
Candidates are.
But the question was whether we want to ask questions immediately after the candidates speak.
No, that's not what TJ was asking.
I understand. the problem here with asking the questions immediately after the candidates speak is that then they would have to have separate question sheets to hand in. And I think that's not going to work very well. So I think we will hold all the questions until the end. After all the candidates have spoken, then we'll go through the questions that you're writing down and
Okay.
we'll hand in.
You mean after every office is spoken, then you're gonna go back with the questions, or just after the city council speaks?
No, the
Then you
problem
have
is
questions
that
at the
all the
end?
questions are on one piece of paper.
We have 4 question sheets.
And you might think up some questions while they're
Okay.
talking.
So I think we should do questions after each batch of candidates.
Well, people would really need 3 question sheets.
Well, we have
Take
more.
too long, maybe we would get to the last
Okay.
candidates that way.
We'll take care of that.
So I gotta get every candidates and then ask the questions.
Yeah, so that's the way it's gonna go, right? The questions happen after every candidate for every office has been given 3 minutes to speak, is that true?
Yes.
Well, that's not what we had earlier decided, but I think.
Well, so what is it, please? I have to like keep time and know what's going
Okay, well,
on.
let me just ask the group. The problem is that if you do questions immediately after the candidates speak, then, and you hand in your paper, then you can't use that same piece of paper to write a question for a different candidate. We can get, we do have some.
Can't you like rip it?
Tear the paper. Tear it.
Okay, if you want to tear the paper, that'll work.
Look, then maybe perhaps you might run out of time to hear candidates speak.
Yeah, well, we got to get going.
I'd
so-
rather.
I don't care, just somebody decide please what this is gonna be.
Do it at the end.
Okay, now I'm going to ask the audience. We'll have a show of hands. Do you want to maybe tear the question sheet and hand in your questions and have questions with each group of candidates, or wait till the end? So everybody who wants to do each group of candidates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Could you repeat the question? We couldn't hear it over here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll have to speak louder. Those people who want to have questions immediately after the candidates speak, raise your hand. Okay, those who would rather have the questions at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
9.
Tie.
And then you tie, then you tie.
10.
There's 10 over there.
So we'll.
Okay, we're good.
We'll do the questions with each group of candidates. And-
No,
I think
The vote is at
The vote is going to be democracy.
Okay, so we'll make the questions at the end.
Doesn't matter. 3 sheets.
Okay, we're going to start with a discussion of the 2 bylaws amendments. Look at your ballot. One of the questions has to do with who
Can you
signs-
speak up a little bit,
Yeah,
Dennis?
one of the amendments has to do with who signs checks. The old bylaw said it was the president or vice president. And the proposed amendment is that it's the president and the treasurer. Seems, well, okay. And I think that's the only difference there. So is there any question about what that amendment is intended to do? Okay. The second amendment talks about the, I'm sorry. Okay. The second amendment talks about endorsements, and in particular, the bylaws refers to endorsements that are made by the board of directors of the club when the membership as a whole has not had a chance to vote on it. So it would be not an endorsement by the club or a recommendation, it would be an endorsement by the board, which is different. And and is not intended to represent the whole club. And the current bylaws specify that that vote needed to be unanimous, and we're proposing changing that to 60%, like the other endorsements are 60%. And there's
For candidates and.
no, well, no, the way it's written is it would include candidates and measures.
Right.
There's a question as to whether the Central Committee would allow us to do that, and I don't know. We don't typically do endorsements by the board.
Oh,
but
does
it
not
does-
endorse a local candidate, okay.
It does occasionally happen.
Oh, okay, I
Leonard?
understand.
I'm really concerned about the 60%, because that's a 3-2 vote. I made your math, that's a 3-2 vote. I don't think that's sufficient for a board-only action like that. I think it needs to be at least 2/3.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, TJ.
I think we ought to maintain the policy we've had, which is candidate endorsements only by a membership meeting. That's hard to do, a membership meeting. In the past, the board considered this and was tempted, or would have preferred to be able to make endorsements by the board, because it's a lot easier. It's tough to arrange these meetings. But I think it's really important. If we're going to endorse candidates, then we ought to have the membership and invite candidates to come and speak, and not allow the board to just do it.
Okay. We'll now have a discussion on these two amendments. Yes, Mike.
The problem with the unanimous requirement is it's basically one member has a veto. And that, to me, doesn't make for a very good board. 60% was the number that we chose. The number could possibly be higher, like 2/3, something greater than 51%. But we get special elections, et cetera, local elections for just one area. And it doesn't make sense to always call a full membership endorsement meeting when you have just one issue to deal with. It's counterproductive. And in cases like that, the board should have the discretion to make an endorsement.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes, Bridget.
I'll just add that the other reason it was made unanimous in earlier decisions was because if it was an issue particularly, and we weren't able to have a membership meeting, then especially if it was known that there was disagreement among the membership about a particular issue, that if the board was going to endorse, then it should really be unanimous.
Is there any other discussion on the bylaws amendments? Either one?
Can I just get a point of clarification?
Yes.
So, at the end of the day, if it's the club voting for an endorsement, it's only a recommendation to the central committee whether or not they want to support that, what the club is asking for.
That's correct.
So-
It doesn't apply to these meetings. They don't address that issue.
No. What I'm getting at, so if this changed where we're not locked out by trying to go for a unanimous decision, it would still be another stopgap measure when it goes over to the central committee if they think that the board was acting.
No,
No.
the whole
No,
point
that's
here
not-
is it only applies to those issues and/or candidates that the central committee chooses not to take a
Okay.
position
Yeah,
on.
not.
I see, so
So
there's no other stopgap, okay, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Good to
Leonard?
know.
I would like to propose that you ask for a show of hands vote first regarding changing the 60% to 66%.
We're going to vote on these two amendments.
Right, but what I'm saying is that it might fail at 60% and might pass at 66, and so I'm suggesting that you see if I've rallied enough people here to increase the percentage before voting on the amendment, because as it stands, I'm going to vote no on it, but I would vote yes at 66, so I'm suggesting that you consider changing it first.
Bylaws amendments do require a 2/3 vote.
But I'm
Candidates
saying,
do not.
no, I'm saying change the threshold in the bylaw amendment that we're about to vote on. change, the one that specifies what board
Okay.
percentage is required for an
And
endorsement.
I'm going to suggest that we not do that. The board decided what the two amendments are. If you don't like it, vote no.
You can always change it when we revise all the bylaws.
Yeah, we're gonna have many
It's just
others.
stopgap.
Fran?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with what Mike said. It's so hard. Look at Congress. We can't even get them to go 60%, and nothing gets done. I think 60% is a good number. It's more than half, but try to get 2/3 of anything or 100%, that's just too hard.
But Fran, 60%.
No.
Wait a minute. Is there anybody else want to make a comment on the amendments? Sabrina?
We have candidates waiting here.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to do that. Okay, if there's no more, we're going to close off the discussion of the amendments and move on to candidates. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to take the Hampton Bay City Council first, and we're going to have the candidates speak in the order in which they appear on the ballot. Each candidate gets 3 minutes, and April, raise your hand. Everybody knows April anyway. April is the timekeeper, so we will start. Is the representative for Mr. Falchek here? He was to send a representative.
I'll represent him.
Is that allowed?
I nominate George as a stand-in.
Okay, so we'll move on. Harvey.
And let us see it.
Hi. You probably know me, I'm Harvey Rohrbeck. Look around you at this beautiful facility, okay? This senior center was a cooperation between government, community members, going out for grants, working together to do something good for the community. And that's what I would like to be able to do if I'm on the city council. I think our council has not been very responsive and cooperative and has not thought out of the box. And we're stuck with a lot of very bad decisions. How many of you are thrilled when you come over Highway 92 and the first thing you see in the city is a real estate agency? Okay. I went to the Planning Commission and the City Council, and I said, we really need to have a gateway to the city that makes the city proud of it. That would be either a community center or a museum or even a picnic area. And that other communities have real gateways. You've seen the sign that says welcome to Half Moon Bay. It's horrible. It was not done by the community. And so it just makes it look like we care more about real estate agents than we do care about each other. I'll give you another example if you want. There's a citizen who has sued the city because he had no other alternative, who wanted to make the right decision for the Kehoe ditch. You all heard about the Kehoe ditch. He won a suit. He could have caused the city millions of dollars in fines, but he chose not to go that route. He chose just to get his legal expenses paid. So what has the city council done in the meantime? The city council has demonized him and has set neighbor against neighbor. If you've ever seen any of these meetings, it's really embarrassing that this person who wanted to do the right thing is made to seem like a terrorist. Okay? And there is a simple solution to the whole problem, which would save the environment and make Mr. Benjamin whole and satisfy the neighbors so that their backyards will be okay. And that simple solution will just take maybe $1 million to reroute the ditch. And that's something that would be beneficial to the community, to the environment, make the neighbors like each other. That's the kind of decisions that I think the city council ought to be making instead of what they have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Deborah Rutter.
Hi, my name is Deborah Ruddick. I'd like to just state up front that I'm a vice president of the Coastside Democrats, and that I will be resigning my position on the board to campaign. I feel that that's an appropriate thing to do. So I've lived here 25 years. I got married here, raised my 2 children here in public schools, and I bought my first home here. Professionally, I work for the State Coastal Conservancy, which is a state agency that uses non-regulatory means to protect open space, revitalize urban waterfronts, build trails and provide for coastal access, etc. For the Conservancy, I spend about 75% of my time as the agency's legislative analyst, and I'm also the agency's liaison to the Department of Finance and the legislature. And as such, I present I educate legislators about what we do, about our budget and our needs. I also participate in the drafting of state legislation. The other percent of my job, I act as a senior grants manager, and I provide grants to cities, counties, nonprofit organizations to undertake the work consistent with our mission. I'm a 3-term council member and 2-term mayor for the period of 1991 to 2003. So you might be wondering, why am I running again? And it gets back to my idea about, municipal government. It's kind of like, why do you have a city? So you have a collection of individuals, and after a while, you try to solve your own problems, pay your own bills, and you realize that the things you want, you can't do, you can't pay for or do, you can't solve those problems individually. So you join a collective, and you form a city government, and you incorporate. And you do that to, manage risk, to provide services that you can't do alone, and to pay your bills. So, based on that context, I've been watching our current city council, and the people that you elect as part of the city are your trustees, your stewards. They're responsible for basically providing the services that you can't. I don't feel our current city council is doing that. And the paper today provides lots of fodder. We need paved streets. Who's in charge? Terrible potholes. Another letter is, we need to better maintain Poplar Beach. Trash everywhere. Have to remove it myself. You remember the Main Street Bridge? Lots of maintenance issues, even though they're required to maintain it. It caused a conflict in the city, and a couple of ballot measures, and lots of hurt feelings. And yet, the council is proposing a new library. The operating maintenance expenses are actually, greater than the city's road maintenance budget. So I think we're at a critical juncture, and I think that we either have to, be a city or not, that we have to take responsibility of ourselves if we are going to be a city and honor our mutual obligations. We can start by taking care of the basics, like keeping our nest clean and, providing for, well-maintained communities.
Thank you, time's up.
And then we can feather our nest later, but let's take care of the basics.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah and Rose.
I agree that what we need in terms of a new city council is one that's open, transparent, that works through consensus. All of us said that in our statement. I think it's critical that we change things and we change them now. Why am I involved? I spent many years as a physician. I started out as an artist. I raised a couple of kids. I moved to Half Moon Bay in 1990 and bought a home in Montara, opened a practice here in 1992. And what I learned through my practice of medicine was that the most important thing that I can do is to listen, to open my ears, to hear what the problem is. There's no way I can come up with a solution without hearing from everybody concerned what the issues are. I'm good at listening. I'm good at reaching consensus. I think that the idea of me starting out as a council member when I'm not a political animal is maybe even a good thing, since I don't carry a lot of political baggage with me, and I don't have a lot of positions on different issues that we have, mostly because I'm ill-informed and haven't been following the politics that closely in town. Just being frustrated by it has been enough to make me decide that I want to run. I don't know that there's a whole lot more I can say. I'll get better at this as time goes on, I'm sure. But I'm excited about it. I think I'll be good at it. I think my strengths in terms of learning how to do healing and how to work with people for 32 years will stand me in good stead. I have a minute left and I don't have anything else to say.
That's perfect.
Okay. Those are 3 candidates, 3 of the 4 on your ballot. Vote for no more than 3. So there's 3 open seats. Check. No more than 3 if you can either blank or 1, 2, or 3. You put 4, your ballot will be invalidated. Yes.
Just a point of order. After we hear from all the candidates, the members will have an opportunity to say something if they wish. So you might want to hold off on voting until you've heard everything everybody has to say, but it's optional.
Okay, so we're going to now have questions for the council candidates?
I thought we were going to.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay. So the next candidate will be for the Coastside Fire Protection District. There's 1 seat open at this point because of the resignation of one of the earlier elected members.
Hi everyone, my name is Bill Kehoe. I live in Moss Beach. I've been there for 29 years. Married my wife, raised my children here in the public schools, pretty much like most of them. The reason I'm running for the fire board is that, first of all, I got involved in the fire board about a year before the recall, and it was Bill did not think it was steam, and I helped initiate the recall, and I worked really hard to get that passed and get the new board on there. And I like what the new board has been doing. They did what the voters asked them to do, and unfortunately, one of our candidates had to step down for medical reasons, which leaves an open slot. And I've been following the board for a couple of years, and I think they're doing a good job. I want to make sure they continue to do a good job. I have a very simple thing that I tell people. It needs to be tweaked a little bit. I think they could have a better public process. There's a lot of issues around the new firehouse, and people wishing that they would communicate more so that they could make a good judgment on it. I think that we still, although we have a reasonably solid budget, that trending with special districts is that money is disappearing rapidly. It's probably not going to get better. So fiscal responsibility is something that any public board member has to really worry about. As far as my background goes, well, I mean, the third thing that I'm running for, the reason I'm running for this is a few years ago while I was on the Mid-Coast Council, I got involved with disaster preparedness because stuff was going on in Half Moon Bay, being run through the county, but completely ignoring half the population that lives in the Mid-Coast. I felt it was my responsibility to make sure that the Mid-Coast had a seat at the table. So I worked hard to do that. I've been attending those meetings for the past few years. That got me involved with the CERT program and a lot of other things. So why am I going to be, what's my background to do this job? Besides following the board meetings and knowing what's current on there and what's coming up. My professional career, I worked in the software industry. I worked for Global 500 companies. I worked for government organizations. I did a lot of highly technical work in basically product planning, cross-licensing, product costs and legal agreements across not just the U.S., but around the world. So I'm used to parsing through very complex documents, very tough contracts, and asking the lawyers to make sure that all the T's and the I's are dotted, and that's what I would plan to do if I was elected. So I respectfully ask for your vote, and it's my support. Thank you.
Okay, on the San Mateo County Harbor District, there are 2 seats, well, 3 seats, I'm sorry, that are up. 2 seats are 4-year seats, and 2 seats, and 1 seat is a 2-year seat. And we're going to treat them all essentially equivalent for the purposes of this discussion. So for the 2-year seat, we have 1 candidate here, Tom Matoush.
First of all, I am not Tom Matoush. Tom had a prior commitment for a board of directors meeting in Arizona for a nonprofit that he bought the plane tickets before he knew about this meeting, before maybe this meeting was even scheduled. When he came in, there was a handout. This is Tom Matoush. He's captain of the Huli Cat sports fishing vessel out of Pillow Point, New England. My name is Jim Salter. I'm a commercial fisherman.
Speak up a little bit, Jim, so we can hear you.
I'm a commercial fisherman. My wife and I moved from San Francisco to El Dorado in 1974. At that time, I was a diesel bus mechanic for the Greyhound lines, and I worked the night shift in the city at the main shop. And during the days, I was pulled on the ocean. Went to my first Harbor Commission meeting in 1975 at El Dorado Elementary School, presented a plan for 1,000 berths. Okay. Since then, we've raised 4 kids on the coastside, primarily as commercial fishing. Now to Tom. Tom has an MBA in management. He worked as director of operations for a hospital with an open heart surgery program. He was promoted to director of heart center programs, and he had 99 employees at multiple facilities. His mission was to figure out how teams can work together and inspire employees to make it happen. After retiring from that, he was also drawn to the ocean, and he bought the Huli Cat, or sports fishing commercial party boat, and he's been skippering that boat for the last 15 years out of Pillow Point. I've worked with Tom over the years on fishing issues. We all know that the salmon is tied to our waters in the rivers, so we work on all the programs to have enough water for people and also leave some for fish and wildlife. It's time consuming. The main thing here is, getting back to the Harbor District, is that the amount of dysfunction and the level of hostility from some of the harbor commissioners and administrative staff towards commercial fishermen and other members of the public has resulted in a pervasive atmosphere of mistrust. Commercial fishermen and many people just don't trust the harbor commissioner. The current, not everybody, but the majority that makes things happen. So what we need to do is
Sorry, but your time's up.
vote for Tom. He can help turn it around.
Good evening, everyone. Please forgive me, I'm recovering from a cold. Thank you for having me here tonight. I know you're here because, like me, you truly care about the issues that affect our coastside. The San Mateo County Harbor District plays a major role in our decisions, have lasting impacts on this region. By way of background, I am a 35-year resident of San Mateo County, and I attended elementary school in Pacifica. As a former planning commissioner for the city of South San Francisco, a city of 60,000 residents, I gained insight into land use, responsible growth, and zoning issues. As for my day job, I'm a manager at the Port of Oakland, which is the nation's 5th busiest seaport, so this work gives me a global perspective of the maritime industry. And as a longtime Democratic activist, I'm currently the Vice President of the North Peninsula Democratic Club. I'm also an alternate for District 1 member of the Democratic Central Committee. My memberships include the Peninsula Stonewall Democrats, the Phil M. Democratic Club, and the Coastside Democrats. I'm also a member of the Sierra Club and the National Wildlife Federation. In my elected capacity, it's been my honor and privilege to serve on the San Mateo County Harbor Commission since 2011. Harbor commissioners are primarily responsible for setting operational, financial, and environmental policy for the district. During my first term, I helped create a comprehensive plan, worked with my fellow commissioners to pay off the district's $19.7 million debt a year ahead of schedule. We worked to receive the first ever Clean Marina certification for environmental stewardship and enhanced rescue operations, which save over 100 lives annually, and worked with county on emergency preparedness and sea level rise. So in 2015, I'll continue to help lead the effort to develop a Harbor District strategic plan designed to create a sustainable blueprint for the district's future. I do agree with some of the criticism of our Harbor District. There is a lot of work to be done with regards to improving board dynamics, improving environmental sustainability, and disaster preparedness and sea level rise. Despite some of the frustration from the community, as well as from fellow commissioners and myself, I do have a sense of optimism for the district and for the future, and that's the optimism that keeps me going. Our Harbor District is making progress, and I do have the commitment and the experience and the passion to hit the ground running and make all of this happen. So tonight you have an opportunity to support 2 candidates for the 4-year seat, and I respectfully ask that I be one of your endorsements tonight. Thank you.
That was, of course, Robert Bernardo. Kimberly Collins?
I'm Kimberly Collins, and I've been in the Bay Area for about 30 years. And I'm a liveaboard, I'm a boater, and I've raised 3 kids here. I've been on many committees and boards throughout the years. Most recently, I was on the Oyster Point Yacht Club. On their committee for a voting member for 8 years, pretty much of the 10 years I was there. And when we boat, we go to different marinas, and the needs pretty much are about the same at every marina that you go to. They want to have safe docks. They're not going to fall through. They're not going to fall off the pier walking down. But they need to have, they need to do upgrades and maintenance and keep everything viable. And sometimes you have to bring in new development or just try to sustain and make things work that are already there. Because once those harbors start to go away, the businesses go away, and the community starts to fall apart. And so you need to keep everything going in the marinas. In the water, outside the water, we need to keep our clean water certification, our clean marina certification going. And yeah, there is work to do on the board, and maybe some changes do need to be made. But they're doing a lot of good in that at the commission. They're maintaining their money, they're doing projects, and they're working with this long-term strategic planning that is going to put them all going in the same direction. And I think right now that's what they need to concentrate on, so they all have the same common goal in mind to keep these marinas going. Thank you.
The budget can tell you what you can and cannot afford, but it won't keep you from spending more than you actually have. The budget of the San Mateo County Harbor District is $9 to $10 million per year. But as you might have read in the papers or the recent Grand Jury report, they've had a structural deficit of 20-30% for the past decade. So the budget has not been managed responsibly. And that is very important because every homeowner in San Francisco, in San Mateo County, supports the Harbor District through property taxes. So those are your tax dollars. And observers are very concerned that the district could sink in red ink. I want to change that. I want to update the outdated accounting system that the harbor has been using. I want to improve the economic vitality of the district by supporting local family businesses. I want to be fiscally responsible. and help the district get back on track. Now, as a marine biologist, I have a great love and passion for San Francisco Bay and for the ocean. I've been studying water quality and water management for many years now, and I would love to bring that experience and my passion to the Harbor District to promote thriving fish and wildlife and clean and safe beaches. Pillar Point Harbor, for example, has been included on the statewide list of impaired water bodies for fecal contamination since 2002. But those are the beaches that families bring their kids to when they come visit. And especially during the winter when the harbor actually provides protection from the often dangerous surf. And it is unacceptable to me that we jeopardize their health, and we have to change that. If I get elected, I promise to honor these commitments and to not make excuses, because accountability is very important to me. See, the Harbor District was established in 1933 as a service to the public, funded by public money, but they have to do a better job being accountable and transparent to actually serve the public. And they have to listen to the public and take the concerns of our community into consideration when they make their decision. They have been out of touch, and I want to change that. I want to bring true transparency to district actions, and I want to encourage public participation and feedback. I'll take any opportunity I can get to promote and protect the coast and the environment that I deeply care about. I'll help the district make fact-based and solution-oriented decisions for safe and thriving harbors.
All right, my name is Brian Rogers. I've met a few of you guys at different harbor meetings. I've been attending those for a year and a half now and found them kind of entertaining and interesting. One of the things that got me started going to the meetings was I was disappointed in the maintenance that they were doing at both marinas, both over at Oyster Point and at Pillar Point. I keep my boat next door to the one at Oyster Point, and I come down to Pillar Point about once a year on the boat. I want to see the maintenance that got started a couple of years ago continue. The only way they can do that is to be fiscally responsible with their budget. It's complicated to read all the different things that are written in the paper and the different reports, but the money is still there. So, you know, the project should still keep moving forward, but currently all are on hold. I want to see that change. I want to see the projects get going again. I want to see them move forward. I'd like to see the commissioners work together better. I've put in my input on how I think they can do that. Some of it's had an impact, some of it doesn't. But yeah, I'm running so that hopefully I can have another impact on it and move things along. I'm a lifelong boater. I've lived in the Bay Area since '99. I've run my business down here since then. You know, those are all things that I do that help qualify me to do this. I can keep my own finances working, so the finances of the district are about the same idea. You look around at what you wanted to spend, you look at what you have, and you figure out how to make it all work. So yeah, looking forward to November. Enjoy.
Okay, we're now going to have questions from the audience. If you have written anything down on paper, if you want to pass it around. Mike, you want to collect the questions from everybody? Mike's going to review all the questions that you have. We'll give him a few minutes and then we'll start asking the questions. While this is taking place, George?
Yeah, I have a question, and I hope I'm not out around here, but is there any opportunity for members of the audience to speak briefly to the group?
We will have, after the questions, when we pass in the ballot, there's going to be some open discussion about the club. And yes,
What I've got is a question, but of course, I've got some. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you have a question addressed to the candidates or other issues?
Dennis, I thought we had said that members of the group could make statements before, while you guys are tallying up the votes, or
after these candidates all spoke? Did we decide that at the board meeting on Sunday?
Yes, there will be.
The question I have, would it be addressing the organization, the Coastside Democrats?
Yeah, that's going to be after we hand in the ballots.
That's
All
too
the
bad,
ballots are
because
being
it's a missed
counted.
opportunity, but okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, I did want to make one comment. I'm a poll worker for the county, and the county needs poll workers. So if there's anybody here who would like to work on the election as a poll worker in one of the precincts on the coast or anywhere else in the county needs your help. So I would strongly encourage you to contact them. Their phone number is 312-5222, and tell them you'd like to help, or go online at shapethefuture.org, and you get information there about becoming a poll worker. Okay, Mike, are you ready to start asking questions?
Yes, I can. Should there be a limit, though, on the number of questions? I think 3 might be the limit for each.
For each person?
For each section.
Yeah, we're running a little bit.
Because you want to have a short response
Yeah.
from everyone. 3 questions, I think, for each.
Okay.
And each candidate has up to 1 minute to respond. Is that yes? Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
To try to get to some that would have, I think, pertinence to everyone. There's a question for the city council candidates. Had you been on the council, what would you have done differently regarding the Main Street Bridge?
I would have had community input as to whether or not we needed the bridge. I would not have tried to make the historic designation go away, which a lot of people don't know that the council tried to make it go away. I would not have tried to get a categorical exemption from Caltrans to have that bridge not be subject to environmental review. So I would have been more community oriented.
I think what I would have done would be to start with somebody from the community who had some engineering background to take a look at the situation first before going outside and using an outside consulting firm to give us information on it. And getting the input, then made a decision to open it up to the community, to have the community put their thoughts together and try to reach a consensus.
Deborah?
The city's historical code requires the city to maintain its historical infrastructure, including the Main Street Bridge, in tip-top shape. So on an ongoing basis, fix cracks, repair sidewalks, that sort of thing. The city council failed to do that. Then they failed to actually test the bridge to see what its safety rating or health rating was. They've been talking about a sufficiency rating, which has nothing to do with the safety of the bridge, and everything to do with does it meet federal highway standards, current standards. So maintain it, test it, seek public input, have public hearings about it, and then use the public to develop a scope of work for any further work that might be needed. The public participation was extremely minimal. A lot of money was spent before even thinking about testing or engaging the public, which was not good stewardship or trustworthy behavior. That wasn't a very open process. I would have opened it up.
Thank you. I'll slightly modify one of these questions for the benefit of the audience, which is that recently the council has gone on record as wanting to open up all the planned unit development districts for development in the next go-around with the LCP, the Just for just about every area that you see open in this town is one of those planned unit developments on the map. So, what would be your position regarding those areas? I think we should start this time with Debbie. Which one?
Well, currently, the city zoning code says that to develop, planned unit development, all the property owners in the district have to agree on a plan. So it does make it, difficult to develop. On the other hand, the city has lots of existing lots and areas that you could build on without having to convert farmland or build on the planned unit development. So I think the city needs to, first of all, I think they're not doing a very open job in pursuing the revision of the general plan. If you look at the principles they've put together, that could be in any set of principles that have been developed over the last 25 years. Nothing's changed. They're still trying to develop the planned unit developments, Wavecrest, build Foothill Boulevard. So we need some sensible policies about how to grow, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and not incur additional, expense in serving residential development. Residential development is very expensive to serve. So we need a sensible plan.
And the other Deborah.
Yeah, I have to admit I don't know enough about it. I don't know even how to begin responding to that. It's incumbent on me to make myself learn.
Thank you. And then something that's a bit... Sorry. I guess I knew your answer.
I want to broaden the topic from just PUDs. I think land use is extremely important, and I think the upcoming update to the general plan is extremely important. That's one of the main reasons that I decided to run for city council, because I think I really would like to make it not include things like Foothill Boulevard and parallel roads to Highway 1, and ways that would increase traffic. So it's just really important to me. I tried to be on the general plan update committee, and of course, they said no, they didn't want to hear me, but they'd love to hear the realtors, the developers, the non-civic minded people that ultimately got on the committee. So I would really like to change the way we do land use in the city.
Nice thing. And then the next question will start with the new Deborah. And I think we'll make one that...
Make it easy.
What do you feel would be your top priority if you get to the city council?
I don't think there's one priority. There are several. Transparency, efficiency, openness, and trying to include the community in terms of the jobs that have to be done. Not outsourcing, keeping business here. We've got so much talent on the coast. I don't see why we have to outsource.
And then, all right.
I would have a lot of different highest priorities, but probably fiscal prudence would be where I'd start. I wouldn't want to spend $30 million on a new library that we don't have. I wouldn't want to have a sales tax increase to make us have the highest sales tax in California. I think sales taxes are regressive, and we should try to minimize them, not increase them. In terms of outsourcing, I think the best thing we ever did was outsource our police. The existing council said that we couldn't afford to keep them, and it was a terrible thing. And I'm very glad, and I think a lot of citizens are, that we are prudent about which services we need to outsource and which we can do in-house better.
Thank you.
I have multiple priorities as well. One thing that seems very egregious to me is the city's foisting liability for sidewalks, both maintenance and liability on homeowners. And at least one resident in Casa del Mar has already been sued and had like a $300,000 liability bill. And if you ask me, maintaining sidewalks and accepting liability is one of the reasons that you incorporate as a city. That's a basic, responsibility of a city. So, and clean up the trash on the beach, maintain the roads, take care of our basic infrastructure, before feathering our nest and building expensive new facilities. We haven't finished planning the medians. We don't take care of the coastal trail. There's lots of holes and cracks in it. So I'd like to see us have a sensible capital improvement program and a budget that actually allows us to maintain what we have. But openness is also very important. When I talk about public safety, it's not just being safe in your bedroom and in your neighborhood. It's about feeling free and comfortable to speak with your neighbors and your elected officials without being branded and labeled, and feeling like you're part of an open participatory process.
Thank you. That's 3 questions each to the city council, and then we move to the fire board candidate, who is Bill Kehoe. And there's one question that appears quite often, and are you interested in continuing to use the services of CAL FIRE?
Obviously, yes. As I said when I spoke, I helped initiate the recall. I supported CAL FIRE from the get-go. I worked hard to get the current board members on there, and like I said before, I see the board doing what the public asked them to do in that recall election. I don't see any major changes that need to happen. I see some tweaking as far as public outreach goes, especially with the firehouses that are coming up. There's $6 million there, but there's also a lot of other areas that the financial stability of the fire department needs to be considering along with that. So yes, I do support CAL FIRE.
Okay.
All good answer, huh? I would get it all in.
I think the answer that was sought, but the next question was regarding firehouses in the Mid-Coast. And you have already somewhat addressed that, but I'll give you a chance to elaborate on that.
So as far as the 2 firehouses, Station 41 in El Granada and Station 44 in North Beach, Ventura, there was a tour of those buildings done a while back before I even considered running for the fire board. And I took that just as a citizen to see what was going on there. And quite frankly, El Granada Station needs a major rehab. The equipment is squeezed in, just the overall space is like 1950. It needs to be upgraded. There's better ways to do that. I think what hasn't happened was a good public process, a good definition of what I like to say, what are the must-haves, what are the could-haves, what are the should-haves, and then what's the cost of those things, so people can make, the public can make an intelligent decision of how much they want changed. We don't have to spend the $6 million that are in the budget just to build 2 new shiny firehouses. And I don't think we can, because the one in San Mateo was about $3.5 million that they just built, which is of a similar size, Station 24. Sorry.
For the last question here, this may have to do with the philosophy as a board member, because it addresses, are you more interested in directly controlling the chief or holding CAL FIRE accountable generally to its contract?
So we went through that battle. It was very divisive. It divided the community. We got through it. It's behind us, and we move forward. We have a good contract. We have a contract that's amendable, if need be. So I think the chief, like any general manager, drives the day-to-day business, worries about the personnel. The board sets direction. The board keeps a tab on the costs. They should not get down into the weeds on things that CAL FIRE is better trained and better qualified to do.
Thank you, that was 3 questions. Thank you. And then to the Harbor District. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And believe it or not, there's a lot of questions. But I think I'll try to get to one that perhaps can be addressed briefly. Recently, the grand jury made an unfavorable recommendation regarding the district and actually called for it to be taken over by the county, citing their reasons for that. And could you briefly respond to your opinion of that recommendation? Okay.
Yeah, so while I agree with the findings of the grand jury that the commission is in disarray and they have been operating at significantly yearly losses and are not very transparent in their actions, I have to disagree with the recommendation to dissolve the district. Among the harbor community are fishermen, there are boat owners, there are business operators, there are people that just come and visit the harbors frequently. I'm one of them. And I think handing the district over to the county is not going to solve our problem. What the harbors need are competent and enthusiastic commissioners that address diligently the needs and the concerns of the taxpayers, as well as the needs and the concerns of the constituents. Thank you.
Yes, I think what you'll find is a consensus among my fellow commissioners that there is a value in the Harbor District and that we shouldn't be taken over by other agencies, because the expertise and the skill set just don't exist in other entities. For example, what the harbor masters do in terms of search and rescue, it's a very specific skill set that they have. And then with regards to the specifics of the grand jury, I personally disagree with a lot of what's in the grand jury report, which we are going to address at the next board meeting. We're going to get into the specifics of that. But I do believe that there were a lot of, there's a lot of confusion in that report.
The Harbor District was dissolved, I believe it was in '66. The harbor fought it on appeal, and it was overturned. So obviously, we're here for an election. You know, we want an election. We don't want to dissolve it. So, but this is something that comes up again repeatedly in the history of the Harbor District, and it just points out the necessity of getting a majority of good commissioners on the board that can reverse the trend.
I don't see the need to dissolve the Harbor Commission. They do have a certain set of goals that they do that the city, Park and Rec can't take over those needs because they know the different waters and marinas, the things that both marinas need. And there are things in the report that are not nice, but there's a lot of things that are a little kind of misguided in that report as well. There's things they're doing right and there are things they're doing wrong, but they have to. I don't think it's worth dissolving the commission over that. I think they just need to fix what it is that's going wrong and invite the public to have a little bit more input on that.
Yeah, that commissioner report was pretty entertaining reading. It had a 2-level attack. It was basically attacking every commission special district in the entire county, but it had the Harbor District's name on the top of it. And even in its first couple of pages, it says we want to dissolve this, but we know that won't work because every time anybody's tried, they've either lost to a vote or lost to it in court. So we're making a recommendation that we even know is a ridiculous recommendation. So I'm not 100% sure why they proceeded to spend 37 pages to come up with a recommendation that even they knew was a waste of everybody's effort and time. I think the time could have been spent much more effectively identifying real issues and making recommendations for those corrections. The focus now is on whether or not to dissolve the board instead of where are the real issues that need to be corrected, and there are some issues that do. And hopefully they will get corrected in the next year.
Okay. The next question will start with Mr. Matoush's replacement. And it's a tricky one, so I'm going to try to, on the spot, figure out what to do with this. This one has to do with the general manager, who gets a lot of ink. And so I think the question that I'll ask is, do you feel the board can improve the relationship of the general manager to the community and to the board?
Well, the existing board has had a record of rubber stamping his contracts when they come up and throwing a raise into the deal. So they've proved themselves inadequate to deal with that. In the 40 years I've been going to meetings, this is the longest we've ever had a general manager tenure. Usually that's, it serves at the pleasure of the board, and usually the board shows displeasure when things aren't going well. And that has not been the case currently. It just points up the need, you know, for us to get out there and vote for some members that can take the bull by the horns. And the general manager serves at the pleasure of the board. We need a board that has the gumption to look for a new general manager.
Mr. Bernardo?
Yes. First of all, it's important to separate policies from personalities. And it's very obvious, especially from the civil grand jury report, saying that the board is dysfunctional, and a lot of it is really personality driven. When you have people's just personalities clashing, and we see it not only on the Harbor Commission, but we see it in different city councils too. I'm not going to name which ones I have in mind, but certain city councils have similar personality issues. And I think that one of the things that we've done is we've brought on board an outside facilitator who's working with the board on those types of dynamics, because they are very tricky, and they can lead us into sort of quicksand where you can't get anything done. Because I do believe we can accomplish a lot if we could just move the personality issues aside.
David?
The Harbor Commission just recently extended the contract of the general manager until 2016. So I would definitely, if I get elected, encourage a thorough performance evaluation. I have those at work every year, and I think they help both ways. They help give staff directions and just help with better communication. And I think that's what's needed here. And then I would, have to evaluate that and listen to fellow board members to make a decision.
Thank you. Brian?
Wow. Yeah, I'm not the Harbor District General Manager's biggest fan, but I don't know how much the board has the ability to effectively change his public interface. They can ask him to do certain things, but there's a limit to what you can expect. I think the reality, though, is it's all got to be based on accomplishments. Is he an effective manager? Has he been an effective manager? Based on that, are you asking would I make a change?
No.
Are you asking how?
The question is more about how do you feel about the current board's interface with
the current board's interface with that
general manager?
Oh, okay. I thought you were more asking about his interface with the public.
And that too.
Yeah, I mean his interface with the public, from my experience, is a little rough. With the board, he obviously doesn't get along with everyone, but no one does. I think I'm done.
Kimberly?
Yes, he can be, he's very knowledgeable. He knows his histories, he knows, the way things are supposed to be run. He doesn't usually listen very well to get across his point of view. Sometimes he uses a lot more words than needs to be put into a statement. But
he does need to be kind of checked every now and then to make sure that he is accomplishing things that he needs to accomplish. And maybe the board does need to be a little bit more on him to have him be producing things a little bit better than, you know, not just on his time schedule, but for everybody else's.
And then the third question, we will be starting with Brian. And recently, the fishermen wrote a letter to the U.S. Transportation Department asking them not to fund a Tiger grant for the harbor district, which indicates a problem. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, from what I understand of it, they basically shot down the ability to get the grant. And in my opinion, that was kind of shooting themselves in the foot. That grant money would have gone to support the marina and create a better, safer marina for them to reside in and to do work out of. The idea that they weren't going to support that seemed like a poor political decision. But they made it. I was told recently that they didn't realize that that was going to destroy the ability to get the grant. That's unfortunate that they were not well informed of what the consequence of their actions were. But they've done it. The grant's dead. We'll try again another day.
Kimberly?
I don't think they should have written the letter. I think the grants are needed for whatever we could get a grant for to fix anything in the marinas, the docks, the piers, the beaches. I think we need to apply for as many of those as we can get, and because that just brings money in we don't have to raise. We get the money for it to do it. And then we have money to spend our budget money on other things. And by shooting that down, it just kind of sets every project we have that they have to do, sets that back, because now this project can't get done, that we're probably gonna have to start learning to find funding for it, when the grant would have taken care of that part of the money for them.
Well, I would disagree with the previous two speakers. It's an indication of the level of mistrust. And, you know, the fishermen weren't consulted. This is a big grant. It's a big project to improve the pier, you know, basically for the big semis and whatnot that have to interact there in the presence of the public also. And they didn't, the commission did not ask for any fisherman's input, any fisherman's point of view, and they're locked into a struggle over their unloading facilities leases at the same time. I believe that this was a very hard thing for the Fishermen's Association to do. And it's really indicative for the need for a majority of commissioners to get on there that can work with people, work with the public. The marina is chartered as a 50% commercial, 50% recreational. And you have commissioners there that I don't think, they don't know the first thing about commercial fishing, and they don't care. People get tired of being treated like chattel.
Bernardo?
Yes. Yes, I was saddened when I saw that letter because it's basically saying no to federal dollars, which could have gone to roadway improvements. And you know, these roads that we have at the harbor, I mean, when they were created long ago, they were built for specific size trucks. And you know, trucks today are much bigger, and so we have to have roadway improvements. And you know, just saying no to federal dollars, I mean, I was really, really saddened by that because it's a loss not only for the people who drive the trucks, who have to make those sort of dangerous turns into the harbor, to just not improving the harbor, which is what we want to do. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to make improvements for the harbor, for everyone who comes to the harbor and uses it.
Thank you. David?
I think the letter that was written to the Department of Transportation was a very hard decision that was made, and it just shows, it's one of the signs that shows that the fishermen and the public have lost confidence and trust in the commission. I think they were very well aware of the consequences that this letter will have, and they've been frustrated with how mismanaged decisions, or how decisions have been made without their input. And I fully support the fishermen. I think they make Pillar Point Harbor what it is today. They make it a unique place to go, and they have my full support.
Well, thank you. That's the end of all the questions. Yes, would you like to take the meeting back?
Everybody to vote now? Or fill out
Wait a
the
minute,
ballot?
I thought we were allowed to say stuff now.
Yes.
Not ask questions, but give statements.
The member comment is coming after we vote.
No,
That was not what we voted for in the board meeting, Dennis.
No, you have to ask before you vote or talk.
Well,
Does anyone remember us voting on that, Mike?
While the ballots are being cast, we'll have time for further discussion about affairs of the club. And we can have public comment at that time. So I think being that we're trying to finish by 9 o'clock, that we need.
I think it would be all right while we're gathering votes if some people made comments.
Yes, yeah, that's.
All right, so I will go around and start gathering,
Yes,
and
please.
you can call on people to speak. Okay?
Yes.
And it's 1 minute, like everyone else said, right?
Yes, 1 minute.
Okay.
So please fill out your ballots and we'll collect the ballots. Yes.
I want to speak.
So do I.
We need to get the ballots in.
I turned mine in already. I need to talk to Bill.
We are supposed to be able to speak before we have to turn in our ballots, and I'm not turning mine in until I'm able to speak.
And Mike just said while you're collecting them, we can make our comments.
What's wrong with it?
Nothing, he's telling you not to. So my comment is about the harbor district. I know what the question that Mike read was. And I feel that the fishermen, that I read their letter and I realized that they were more upset because they were not included as stakeholders when it came to applying for that grant. And that grant was supposedly for the fishermen and the harbor. And I think a lot of public things happen even at the city council where they don't involve the public enough as stakeholders to give their input. They just fast track things on through. They're doing it for big waves, they're doing it, they did it for the Main Street Bridge. They really didn't listen to people, they just wanted to spend the money. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. Sabrina, go ahead.
This process right now, where what the board agreed to was that there would be an opportunity for members to speak for a few minutes before the vote, is the type of process that happens over the hill with the San Mateo County Dome. So we were trying to create a process that's more similar to the Central Committee's process. So just explaining what this was supposed to be about. So these ballots should not have been taken up yet, but I'll move on. I would really like to encourage everyone to tell your neighbors, tell your friends to please support candidates for the Harbor District who are not incumbents. So it's very, very important that if we're to turn the district around in a more positive direction, it's going to take new energy. And I'd just like everybody to reach out to everybody they know and help make that happen. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I'm still looking to get, we have any other speakers?
Who else would like to make a comment?
Anybody want to change their ballot?
Any of the candidates that are club members, of course, are more than happy to accept their ballots as well. Okay, is there anyone who would like to make a comment about what our club ought to be doing this coming year? We'd like to get input as much as we can from our audience here. Thank you all for coming.
Hi, I will make one comment. There's been, started getting my attention last year, actually, around Christmas time. Police violence in California. A couple of women were shot in Southern California. 2 women were out delivering newspapers at 6 in the morning. Right after that incident, something similar happened over in West Los Angeles. We had the shooting here, down here at Moon Ridge. A young teenage girl in the Hispanic community, shot by sheriff, point blank. Supposedly she was wielding a butter knife, supposedly. You never met, I'm sorry if there's any policemen here, but I'm really riled about this because I've been reading accounts in Ferguson about how the police responded to the people who were protesting the shooting, and they were peacefully protesting. My whole point is about police violence. It's rampant. It's hip. It's out of control. It's here in California. It's not in Florida. It's not Southern California. It's in Half Moon Bay. And I think we as Democrats, we want to embrace the Hispanic community. Maybe more people would vote if they didn't see our side the same as the other side. So I just think going forward, we have to look for ways to find social justice for people that live in this community.
Anybody else like to address that? Okay, any other comments about the club? Well, what kind of meetings, public meetings would you like to hear? Len, go ahead.
So I thought they had a number of great bullets listed in the vision. The only comment I have is with so many bullets, it would be nice to know at the level of 3 or 4 items what are the priorities of the new board. Because really, if you're pursuing all of them, it's just too many. And so I'd like to have an understanding of the direction by saying what the priorities are.
Okay, I think I can speak to the board by saying that we haven't had that discussion yet. There's been so much stuff that we wanted to do in getting ready for the election and just getting used to the new members of the board. But we've been having meetings every other week, and there's just a whole lot to get done. Hopefully we won't have to continue having meetings every other week. It's getting to be a little much. But we understand, and that's what we'd like to do. Hopefully we will get to it. Sabrina?
I don't know the schedule, but I know some other people here do. There is another meeting coming up that's a big meeting in September, right?
September 21st.
September 21st, so I just wanted to mention that. And from what I've heard, it's going to be at the Half Moon Bay Brewery. Yeah. So it'll be there. It's been there before.
4 to 7.
And the speakers are still being lined up. And there will be a bar, no host bar, as well as some hors d'oeuvres.
The club is going to co-sponsor Tom Hayden, who's going to be speaking at the DFA, what is it? San Mateo County Democracy for America, September 3rd at 7 o'clock at the Woodside Road United Methodist Church. And those of the people who know Tom Hayden, I think you will learn a lot. We're contributing to his expenses, and he's talking about a simple topic: saving democracy, preventing war, and blocking the rights.
Like topics. So we have 2 big events coming up in September. And we hope that September 3rd, you can come and hear Tom Hayden and Woodside, and on the 21st is our campaign, our traditional campaign kickoff event at the brewery. And Harvey, the speaker there?
Not yet.
We're working on the speaker.
We're working on it. Okay. Yes.
You know, also one of the priorities we have is registering folks to vote. And so I'll be leading some voter registration, looking for club members to help me September 6th, September 27th at the Half Moon Bay Farmers Market, and then both days at the Pumpkin Festival. So if you'd like to help out, please contact me. And you can see me here tonight or coastdemdan@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay, so voter registration has traditionally been a strong point of the club, and we've been working on that for the last few years. Yes.
The Sierra Club will be contacting all the candidates for these districts tonight to provide questionnaires in anticipation of endorsements. You should expect that in the next couple of days.
Okay. Are there any other events around that anybody would like to make notice about?
Just wanted to mention, in case you didn't know, that the Harbor District meetings are now located at Seacrest School, and if you haven't ever been to, this is when they're in Half Moon Bay. It's every other meeting. Sometimes they're in South San Francisco, sometimes they're on the coastside. When they're on the coastside, they're at Seacrest School, which is literally right behind us. So if you ever want to come and experience the meeting firsthand, you're welcome to join us, and just come over to Seacrest. Thanks.
Also like to remind everybody, if you need reminding, I kind of doubt it, but that all these candidates are going to be running campaigns, and they're going to need some campaign help, as well as campaign donations. So if anybody is so inclined, please talk to some of the candidates that are here tonight and let them know that you'd like to help out. Okay, how is our ballot count?
Not counting. Oh, I know what the quorum should be though, for 60%. We should have 20 ballots collected, and 60% of that would be 12. Each member vote has to get at least 12 to get the 60%.
Okay. Okay. So
Are they all
any
collected?
other-
Everybody turn in their ballot? No. There's
Okay.
one here that hasn't voted. Better go get them. She's down the hall.
Yeah.
Give it to her.
Yeah.
How many candidates?
You can vote.
Okay, I voted.
Anybody else have any comments while we're waiting for the colors committee to tally up the votes? There's still some refreshments over there. You're welcome to partake if you like. I'd like to thank the candidates very much for coming this evening, and I'd like to thank Darren for
Will you be announcing the results here in a moment, or is that?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, but it's tallying and then it should be back.
No, he was dismissing everybody.
Is he doing a lot?
You know, somebody can go on a candidate, I am staying out here, so you know the propriety.
He was told to pick an assistant.
There's already people in there, there's probably already people.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and stick around, get the results. We'll have some more bacon or chocolate or whatever. Thank you again.
Except the two of those are Tucker shots, which I don't understand because they're basically saying, yeah, we're the Harbor District, or something. That's the idea. Like to read the question as I submitted it was, why hasn't the incompetent chief replaced?
The only thing he promised me was
he comes from Concrete Road. He modified it. I submitted questions for all
I didn't like the picture that you demonstrated. Get the picture. I have but I never forgot. You know, just don't. You're so many people choosing to so I showed the result of that. Because he did not like it. But that's not what brought me. He yelled at me on that Friday. No, it was no big deal. It was just stupid. But then on Monday, he deleted one of Francis. One of them. Anyways, I just went up there and I did my typical, I don't like anything. I don't like what Francis said. I don't like Francis. And the picture was why. The whole shot. Illustrated. And so I went out there and saw that's when I got that. And then I got this question and said, please don't post it. So I respect that. No one's ever asked me to. So I asked me that. You did a great job. That's it's easy to do. Just to all my ideas, but I know how to get around no, that's the truth. And I'm not sure what it is. And we're going to start talking about we don't want Americans to come back from I got my own idea.
Okay, 1.30.
I've been directed to tell you to contact the city. So I talked to them. You're in charge of That's why he shot down the how come you
What's the other?
Well, we just, I mean, I don't know. care about them. That's where it's at. You gotta stay on You can't win on the issue because nobody's going to
I'm thinking you got both personalities.
Go if they do that.
Could I have your chairs, please? We have
I need to talk to you.
I've got it'll go up on my blog tonight. I have a blog. I'll send an email and all of it.
Okay, the following people have been, the club.
Send me some of it. Just send me some good stuff. I'll hold on to it. Call me later. You got it.
Situations. First of all, the two bylaws amendments both passed. For city council, we have Harvey Warback, Deborah Ruddick, and Dr. Deborah Penrose. For the fire protection district, we have Bill Keel. For the San Mateo County Harbor District 2-year term, we have Tom Matouche. And for the Harbor District 4-year term, there's 2 seats. We have Nicole David, Robert Bernardo, and Kimberly Collins.
No,
I'm sorry, 2.
No, there's just the one there. So. Just one guy to go.
Thanks, Rick.
Just one, yes.
Okay, so Nicole David was the only one who got 60%. So we'll give a round of applause to everyone.
Let's do that.
Thank you very much. Please come to our office.
Yes, just say
My mother was a Navy
And Tom owes you big time.
Here, shut this one off.
Hello everyone. My name is Chastity Prudence. I am here to tell you about a very important measure coming up in November's elections. Measure X. Measure X will continue to allow our sweet innocent children to be taught the horrors of sex in our public schools by who knows whom. They are being taught how to do this animalistic act by people who could be potential perverts. Just watch this video of young children being taught about sex in a public classroom. Pay attention to the confused and horrified looks on these children's faces as they are given the details of the sordid act. Warning: this video contains graphic illustrations of people's private parts and should not be viewed by the faint of heart. They are also cute. Isn't that funny?
Okay, simmer down. Here's the penis. Now, when you're around 14, the testes start making a chemical substance called a hormone. You all know what sperm is?
Oh, the vulgarity this man has.
Here's a cross-section of the vagina. The erect penis enters here. Rhythmic movements, a pumping back and forth, causes an ejaculation from the penis. Then the egg is fertilized and settles down here in the uterus and grows into a baby.
Just love
About 9
babies.
months later, the baby
They
is
are
born
so tiny.
through the vagina. This is how we all came into the world.
Did you see the looks on the faces of those poor children? Sex should not be taught to our children in the public schools. No way. Not in our schools. This delicate subject should be learned in the privacy of a child's own home, not in a public classroom. There is only one way to teach our children about the birds and the bees. It is the same way you and I found out about it. The internet. That's right. Unless you want some potential pervert teaching your children how to do it. While in the comfort of their own home, you can guide your children to the kind of porn sites that you think will teach them what they need to know. You may not want to show them the sites that you actually go to, but you can help them find an appropriate porn site of their own. Many porn sites offer huge family discounts, so be sure to shop around. Remember, only you can save your sweet young children. Vote no on Measure X. Do it for the children.
Teacher, leave them kids alone.